Alright guys, Brad Langley here with you again, and we're back with the kicking clinic, okay? And so we're continuing this process of figuring out our differential diagnosis. What we're trying to do is figure out what is the problem versus what is the symptoms of the problem. And if you remember from our last video, we talked about the plant foot and what happens, what are some of the symptoms when the plant foot is the problem, okay? Today we're moving on to the next of the 5 elements of kicking. We're inside again today, basically because outside is nasty. It's rainy today, so we had to come inside, and so we're going to try to make do with this. But today we're on the next of the 5 elements, which would be the kicking position. Okay, so our problem, we're inside, so we get to use the board again. So our problem today will be our kicking position. Alright, our kicking position, okay? And so let me back you up, make sure you can see me, and we'll kind of do like we did the last video. I'll just kind of do stuff and talk about it as I go. We're inside, so space is going to be a little bit more difficult. I hope you can see see everything as I talk about it. Okay, so our kicking position, we remember, use this. You remember, it's our shoulders over our knees, right? Shoulders over my knees, knees over my toe, right? This allows us to hit the sweet spot and everything, get our body in the right position. When something goes wrong, there's really kind of 3 big things, kind of 2 big things that happen. When what I see most commonly when a kicking position goes wrong, we talked a little bit about it last video with regards to the plant foot and what the plant foot does to the kicking position. But the first thing that I always look for is, what is this left hip doing? Okay, obviously if you're a left-footed kicker, what is your right hip doing? But since I'm a right-footed kicker, what is this left hip doing? That's what when I'm trying to address the kicking position and trying to evaluate the kicking position, that's kind of my central point. What is the hip doing? Okay, remember, from the side view, it's our shoulders over our knees, knees are over our toes. Now from the front view, remember, we're trying to be as close to a straight line as we can be, okay? We want our shoulder, hip, knee, all to be pretty close in line. It's going to be a little bit off, but the closer to a straight line that can be, so if I'm kicking like this, see how that shoulder's over that hip is over that knee right there? Obviously there's a body lean, but all still within a straight line. That's a good kicking position. What I look for is, what is this hip doing? This is not a good kicking position, okay? That hip poked out like that, it really changes the angle of my foot. It makes it very difficult to do, to strike the ball, okay? So, the kicking position, when I'm evaluating the kicking position, what is this hip doing, okay? Is this hip staying in like it's supposed to? Real strong muscle there, in like it's supposed to? And then from there I go up to the shoulders, okay? So, is that hip doing what it's supposed to? Then, if it is, if it's not, whatever, then I look at the shoulders. Are the shoulders dipping down? Some people like to dip down. Think that they create more power in a kick, but crunching real hard. But what they end up doing is actually taking a lot of power away. So, first step, look at the hips. Second step, look at the shoulders. My shoulders up like they're supposed to be. Remember, our chest is up, our head is down, so that our follow through comes up to our chest. Some people like to bring that chest down to that follow through. And what ends up happening is they shortchange your follow through a little bit. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. So first thing is the hip staying in. Second thing are the shoulders up, nice and parallel. Right? Remember our planes, 1, 2, 3. Trying to keep those planes in line with each other. And then the last thing that I look for, and again, these are 3 things, and I look at them all kind of at the same time, but kind of from a systematic standpoint. You go 1, 2, 3. You look at the knee. What is the knee doing? Is the knee staying flexed? Remember, as we come in and kick, we plant, nice flex, stay flexed as we come through. Okay? Is that left knee extending? Again, we talked about this last time with the plant foot. Sometimes if the plant foot gets too close, we have to extend, trying to create more room, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about just the kicking position. We're assuming that the plant foot is okay here, okay? So this is just the kicking position. Sometimes people, again, they're trying to create more power, and so they extend, trying to create a little bit more oomph out of that left leg, and what they we end up doing is taking power away. Okay? So let's get into, so that's the problem. We have a problem in our kicking position. Let's get into kind of some of the symptoms. What are we going to feel, and what is it going to do to the other elements? Okay? So from a straight on viewpoint here, let's address the hip. So I'm in a good kicking position right here. Knees are over my toes, my shoulders are over my knees, my hip is in, arm up, I'm ready to kick, address the ball, look good. What happens if that left hip pokes out, right? It goes out. Watch here what my shoulder does. As that left hip comes out, what's my shoulder doing? It's going straight down, okay? That's one of the things that happens. So even though we look at the shoulder separately, they're definitely interlinked here. So if my hip pokes out, 9 times out of 10, that shoulder's going to want to drop, okay? What I feel, because sometimes you don't feel that hip poking out, but a lot of times what you'll feel is you'll feel kind of just like you're crunched on the ball. You feel like you're, that's a really best way to describe it. You feel like you're crunched onto the ball and kind of all over your leg. You can't get a good follow through. And so that hip goes out, that chest and that shoulder dives down. So that's what you feel. You feel kind of crunched and all kind of crumpled on top of the ball. And then as you kick, again, this is going to affect your foot to ball contact, because as that shoulder drops down, watch my right hip too. I don't know if you can see, there's my bony hips right there. If that hip comes out, that right hip goes down. That right hip goes down, my kicking foot goes down as well. So now I'm no longer going to hit the sweet spot. So if I'm looking at a ball here and I'm about to hit my sweet spot, that left leg pokes out, my right hip goes down, my foot is going to drift down onto the ball a little bit below that sweet spot, because it's going to go down toward the ground. Okay? So I'm going to go down, and then my foot to ball contact all of a sudden feels kind of similar to what it did when I was too close in my plant foot. I end up kind of taking a divot, I hit the ground with my toe, or I end up having to come in and wedge style it a little bit and pull my toe up a little bit and wedge it, okay? So that left hip goes out, right hip goes down, my foot drops down with my right hip. I'm actually hitting below the sweet spot. So what my body feels, I feel kind of jammed and kind of crunched over the ball. And then when my foot hits the ball, it's real kind of slappy, because I'm not hitting a good foot to ball contact. And two, I probably will take a divot, so I might hit the ground, okay? Now, as we make foot to ball contact and then try to come through, the other thing is, it's very, very difficult to have any kind of follow through whatsoever in this position. So I'm all crunched down like this. I can't drive up toward my left shoulder because my left shoulder is down toward my leg already. So it's hard to drive up when your shoulder's already down. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but nonetheless. So I'm down, left hip is out, shoulder and chest are down. I try to kick, and now if I follow, I got nowhere to go, so I just kind of fall off. Okay? So instead of being nice, up and tall, hip in, where I can explode and come up toward that left shoulder and rock forward, I'm all stuck and just jammed in here. I'm all on top of myself. I can't get a good follow through, and I fall off to the side. Okay? And so that's what happens. So some of the symptoms, right? We use the other elements as the symptoms. Our foot to ball contact. It's a lot of times we'll end up taking a divot before we hit the ball. Maybe the ball will come off a little high on our foot, because remember we're down a little bit. And then our follow through is low and kind of falling off to the left, okay? So when we think about it, my follow through is low and falling off to the left, is that really the problem? And I'll kind of backtrack and see that that's really just a symptom of an off kicking position, okay? So if we're kind of out like that down, hard to kick the ball, hard to get a good follow through, okay? So what happens, what happens if really, about the other major kind of kicking position mess up that I see, of course there's all a bunch of different ones. That's the primary one, that left hip likes to poke out and the shoulders like to dive down. The other one, people tend to sometimes lean back a little bit. They get their shoulders a little bit too far back. That kind of tends to be the two most common ones that I see, and those are kind of the two that we're going to talk about. But so looking from the side here, shoulders over my knees over my toes, right? That's where we're supposed to be kicking. So what happens if I'm basically leaning back. I get my shoulders back. You know, sometimes what happens is you just get your balance off, you know. And sometimes it's an issue with your approach and your alignment, and we'll talk about that later. But we're just talking about the kicking position here. Sometimes you get your balance off a little bit, and you just get your shoulders a little bit too far behind you, okay? So this kind of turns into kind of that reaching like we did with our plant foot. You know, if our plant foot's too far away from the ball. So our plant foot's good, but we're just off on our balance. We're leaning back. What's going to end up happening, we really get this feeling like we're reaching, okay? And so what happens, let me backtrack one second. In this position like this, it's also very hard to get your hips to rotate and come in. So a lot of times you'll hit kind of high on your foot, and the ball, you'll block out, and the ball will want to drift off to the right, okay? Just because you can't, because in this position, you can't get those hips to rotate around and have a good hit, okay? So what would jog my memory on that is what I'm about to say here, is if we're leaning back, remember we're reaching, so we're going to get that kind of, that helicopter approach. We reach, everything's back, so then we kind of over-rotate, and we end up doing this little helicopter follow-through, kind of like what we talked about with the plant foot back in the last video, okay? So here, I'm back, my shoulders are back. What ends up happening, a lot of times, you'll see people, to compensate, they'll actually crunch really, really hard, and their butt will end up kind of poking out the back, or they'll sit down on it, what I call sitting down on it, okay? So if my shoulders are back and my balance is off, I'm coming in, and I'm trying to kick the ball. I know I'm off, I'm too far away from the ball, so I'm trying to create, subconsciously, make up the difference here. So sometimes you'll see guys that actually kind of sit down on it. It actually looks like they're sitting down like that. Their butt actually kind of pokes out the back here. They sit down on it like that. And the bad thing is, now all your momentum and everything kind of starts moving backwards. So as you do that, you may make foot to ball contact, but it's going to be daggum near impossible to go forward into your follow through, okay? So even if I'm able to make good foot to ball contact, my follow through ends up, I don't go anywhere. I just stay right there and I just spin around it. And most of the time, if you do that, your ball is going to drift way off to the left, okay? Have a real nasty hook to it. Sometimes, and this, we addressed this last time, sometimes you just can't make up that space, and it actually kind of rolls off the tip of your toe, kind of rolls off the top of the end of your foot and flips off to the right. But more often than not, you have this real, you sit down, have this real ugly helicopter follow through, and the ball drifts left on you. Okay? The other way I've seen people do, if their shoulders are back, they really try to make up the space by really contract their abs until they'll end up crunching real hard like that. So coming in, my shoulders are back, crunch real hard trying to make up the space, and then basically I'm in the same position that I was we just talked about. And my shoulders are down, I can't get my follow through, my kick and my foot to ball contact angle is all jacked up, and it's just really bad, okay? So we can look at our other elements as these symptoms. You know, what's my follow through doing based off of what my kicking position is doing. So, with all that being said, I'm going to attempt to kick some inside or inside. So I'm not going to take a 3-step. I'm going to take I'm going to just take like kind of a 2-step or 1.5 step. But nonetheless, I'll be able to show you a little bit, I hope, of what it looks like when your kicking position goes berserko. Okay. Since the camera's over there, I'm going to show you the side view where we're kind of back, our balance is back. And we're going to try that first, okay? And then we'll just kind of go from there. I hope you can see it. Let's see if we can see the ball here. Alright, we'll see. Alright. So let's watch it and see. This is going to be my shoulders are back. So this is the kicking position where my shoulders are back. So I'm going to be kind of back like this. And then we'll just kind of watch my follow through and stuff. Bear with me because this is basically just a little 1-step here. Alright. So if you notice, I was able to get a pretty good follow through, but I end up way far back like that. And what I felt that you couldn't see, my abs really had to work on that one. I really felt my abs pulling And if you notice, I really couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go forward or anything like that. Let's try another one here. Oh, that was a bad example. But I think we kind of got the point. I had to really crunch hard. Let's do one more like that, just for good measure here. Okay, that last one you saw me. I was kind of behind, so I crunched real hard. Let's do another one, just for kicks here, and we'll see. Okay, my shoulders are going to be back when I'm coming into the ball, so we'll see what my kicking position, my fall through, and all that stuff does. Oh. If you notice right there, my shoulders stayed back. It was hard for me to move forward. I really couldn't move forward through my kick at all. And what I was feeling, a big pull on my abs. I was able to get my hips and stuff around, but I just wasn't able to go forward. So my ball's not going to go that far. And two, I hit them way off my toe, way down here. Okay. So now let's move. I'm going to move the camera around a little bit. We're going behind my net. This is my little barn that we're kicking in right here, so ignore the lawnmower and all that jazz. Well, here we're going to work on our... Here I'm going to address that hip poking out, okay? So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens here. I'm gonna try to let that hip poke on out here. Again, remember, this is just a one step, so it's not perfect, but hopefully it gives you a good idea. Alright, so you see what my shoulders did, how they dove down because that hip poked out, and you see where my fall through went very low. I actually hit the ball halfway decently. Pretty close to the sweet spot, but it's just not perfect, okay? Watch again here. Watch what the hip's going to poke out. Watch what my shoulders and my follow through look like. Alright. So you saw that. You saw my shoulders diving down. Shoulders diving down real hard. Follow through can't come up toward that left shoulder. So it's really ugly. I have trouble moving forward. I'm going to try to kick a normal one here. Try to kick it correctly, keep that hip in, and watch the difference between my fall through and kind of where I end up. I hope you can see it. So it's a lot easier for me to rock on forward if I kick it normal. Keep that hip in. Alright, let's move you back here. Alright. Alright guys, so that's basically it. That's basically it. Those are kind of the main things that I'm seeing with the kicking position. Of course, there are all these little things where everybody's a little bit individualized. So, but basically, this is a very good start. Get you thinking about the kicking position. All right. So remember the problem with the kicking position. A lot of the symptoms show up with the follow through. Okay, was it low and off to the left, or if it's that helicopter where you follow through. And then also, what are you feeling with football contact? If we're diving down, chances are it's going to be hard for us to hit the sweet spot with our foot, the sweet spot of the ball. All right? And just remember, always trying to systematically work our way back and figure out, is this the problem or is that just a symptom? Okay? So that's it for the kicking position. And next time will be more of the foot to ball contact. We'll just systematically go through these. And if you got any questions or comments, post them, send me an email, whatever you want to do. I hope this helps. I hope you can see it. Being inside is a little bit difficult. But anyway, keep kicking, keep working, and we'll see you guys next time.